2. So all I've done here in my code is for default.aspx redirect back to bike info with no query string. If it's a mountain bike, redirect with an item ID of 1, and for a road bike I redirect with an item ID of 2. Now I need to go into my HTTP, into my web config, and hook up the HTTP module that I just created. So I will add in HTTP modules, add, and I'm going to say name equals URL rewrite, and the type is also going to equal URL rewrite. So now I should have that all hooked up. I should be able to run my page. Now you see with my bikeinfo.aspx, when I click on my mountainbike.aspx, it redirects me to the page mountainbike.aspx, and I see the text that was there. And if I go back and click on the road bikes, you see that I'm redirected to roadbike.aspx. And even though that page doesn't exist, under the covers it's redirecting me back to the bikeinfo.aspx with an ID of 2, and I see the information that I expected. And equally as important, if I'm an end user and I can't remember how to get back to the page that lists all of the different mountain bikes, or all the different bikes, I can just go back, lop off the end part of the URL, hit enter, and now instead of going to that default.aspx page and displaying that, I rewrite the URL and I come up with the bikes page. So now I want to show you one problem that you might run into, and that's if you have a form that posts back to itself. So I've gone into my mountain bike page, and if I click on the submit button, you notice that I come back to the same page, but my URL has changed. And now instead of saying mountainbikes.aspx, it says bikeinfo.aspx with a question mark and item ID equals 1. This isn't a real big problem, except it can be sort of disconcerting to the users, where they think, wait, I was on mountainbike.aspx and now I'm on this different page. So there's a way to fix that, and to do that we need to go back into our solution and add a new project. And so in this case I'll add in a DLL project. Class library, and I'm going to name this actionless form. The reason I'm going to do that is this code is going to take and extend the HTML form control such that it is going to remove the action property or the action tag from the web page. The default behavior for the browser will then be to repost back to the page that it came from instead of having the rewritten URL in there. So I'm going to rename my class 1 and I'm going to call it form. I need to go in and add a reference to the system.web DLL so that I can get to the and extend the HTML control, the HTML form control. I'm sorry. So now I have my form 1 and I want it to inherit system.web.ui.html controls.html form. And I need to override the render attributes method. So I'm going to go in there and use the writer parameter that's passed in, which is my HTML text writer, and write out the attribute for the name, and then I'm going to call the base class attributes.remove. Remove the name that was passed in there. And I'm going to do the same thing with the method attribute. And then I want to write in an attribute, or render, I'm going to render the attributes that I've set up so far in this HTML text writer. And then remove from the attributes collection on the base the action attribute. And finally I'm going to say if I'm going to set it up so that if the base has an attribute, or in other words if the base is not nothing, then I want to write that attribute out into the resulting form. And so I'll write out the client ID for that. I'll go ahead and compile this and make sure that I haven't made any syntax errors. And then I need to go back into my website and add a reference to that new DLL that I've created. And I'll go over to the projects just to make it easier. When I do that, it's going to create a bin folder for me and put that DLL in there. And then I need to go back into my bike info ASPX page, and I need to register the DLL. So at the top of the page, I'll add in a register tag. I'll give it a tag prefix of MNF for my new form. The namespace is going to be actionless form, and the assembly is also going to be actionless form. Now all I need to do is come down here and change my form tag to use the MNF prefix to tell it I want it to use that, the MNF or my new form, which will remove the action attribute from the form tag. So now if I run this, I can go into the mountain bike, and you'll notice if I view source on this page that I have a Form 1, but it doesn't have an action. And so now when I click on the submit button, it will submit back to mountainbike.aspx. So hopefully you've seen how easy it is to implement URL rewriting so that you can help your users to come up with friendly URLs that are easy for them to remember and easy to navigate to, as well as avoiding errors when you've rearranged your site and old bookmarks don't work anymore.